Hi, you've reached the Talking Racewalking podcast. It's all about racewalking, of course. It's talking to racewalkers from around the world about racewalking. Join me, Noel Payne, a amateur racewalker in Canada, as I talk to elites, Olympians, record holders, masters walkers, and anybody who's out walking as fast as they can. Hi, so this is a section where I'd actually be talking to someone, a race walker. So this is where you can come in. If you know a race walker, you're a race walker, and you have an amazing story, I want to hear from you. So reach out, let's chat, let's get walking and talking. Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of Talking Racewalking. So this time I brought on an athlete as opposed to a coach, and I've got Canadian Masters athlete Dmitry Babenko. Welcome, Dmitry.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're someone that I'd like to know more about. We've had a few chats here and there and had the chance to racewalk together just briefly a year or so ago. So I'm getting to know you better, and I'm going to allow others to get to know you as well. So to introduce yourself a little bit, for those who don't know you outside of Canada, perhaps, Dmitry is a multiple Canadian record holder. You've gained multiple titles at the national, provincial level, and world level. So what are some of the highlights? Because I've got the records and titles are too long to list. Okay, that's how many he has, folks. So how about you give the folks here listening a quick glimpse of, say, your top titles and top records that you find yourself proud of?
Yeah, that's a correct question, especially for the people who are not kind of in our sport. Usually what I'm highlighting is I am 3 times world age group champion, and it had been mostly 5K and 20K, never won 10K. Also, I'm 17, I believe, times Canadian age group record holder. And I'm especially proud of one of them, which is 50K for M45 age group, because now this distance essentially dead. And I won't be able probably to race it in my next age group, in which I am in right now, M50. Won't be able to break. And there is a kind of tiny silver lining on this, because nobody will be able to break my records for M45.
You mean like me, the guy coming up behind you? So
yes, yes, or anybody else, because previous record actually had been set in 1972. So this kind of time span I'm looking at. And what else? That's most important, I think, things about me.
Yeah, and I think Dimitri is also being he's downplaying things a lot. He's got a lot of records. I mean, I started going through and it was just too long to list, and those world and Canadian records and titles come with a lot of fast times. So, I mean, I was trying to look for what your personal bests are, because to start off with, how long have you been race walking, Dimitri?
Okay, it's a kind of a little bit two-stage answer, because I started race walking when in my 6th grade, when I have been 12 years old boy, back in Moldova. And I had been race walking about 5 years, so until I turned 17, and already had been first year in university. And at that moment I stopped. So, and life happened, and I took my 2 master's degrees and all that stuff, work, family, and then I realized that I'm gained a lot of weight. I started running. I get into the marathon running. I've been running several years. And essentially, I developed some injuries, hamstring, mostly related to my low back uh, pain and all that stuff. Nothing helped. I did a lot of different things. And at a certain moment, I realized that actually I can try race walk because I remember how to do this from my childhood. So uh, approximately at age 35, I actually started to get back to race walk. And it went so well because I not only had been able to keep me active, and also I had been able to satisfy my kind of competitive tooth. And as well, after a year of practicing race walk, I had no problem running again. But the problem was only that I don't want to run. Essentially, I'm running for recovery, sometimes just to have fun, some local races, but mostly I'm race walking
So for you, really,
since
your
then.
first love was race walking as opposed to running, where a lot of people seem to be coming from the opposite direction.
Mm. When I was saying that first love, it means that kind of on the sport, I loved race walk. It wasn't that because at first when I came, it had been kind of athletics group.
Okay.
So our coach actually had been teaching us athletics at first. So we came, and in fact, it wasn't even athletics. What had been special about my first coach that he knew probably how to deal with kids because it's boring. It's boring endurance, any endurance sport for a kid. Running, race walking, cycling, I had experience before that with kayaking, uh, rowing, this kind of thing. It had been terrible experience. When I came to this coach, what essentially we had been doing first, just run a little bit, maximum 4K, maximum, never more at first. And then we had been playing volleyball, basketball, soccer. We had been doing some fancy gymnastics. It had been so interesting. Literally, we were just playing games. And essentially, he had been adding more and more some special track and field stuff. So we were running a little bit more. And at a certain moment, he introduced us to racewalk. And at first, before the main event, kind of playing games, we were race walking, asked to race walk 300 meters. And he just gave us feedback, how it went, what should be better, especially most just bent knees, obviously. And then we again had been playing games. He had been increasing the kilometers, meters of race walking until we went into some local races. And there where we catch up additional motivation besides games, because now we knew that actually we can compete with this thing, running or race walking, and it kind of it at least it worked for me.
That's interesting. No, I think your experience with race walking is a little bit different. I mean, a lot of from my perspective and what I've seen in Canada, especially where race walking is perhaps not as well known in Europe and some other countries. Um, a lot of athletes here find it later on in their older years. It's something they do after they've started running, or they find they need an alternative, and then they find race walking. So I think you're one of the few people I've talked to that have started out earlier, been exposed to race walking when they're younger, and then continued, or at least you have the knowledge of it before you get to our master's years. So I find that very interesting. What keeps it fun for you now? I know you've got that competitive drive, but what keeps race walking fun for you?
Uh, I kind of looking to fulfill my potential because I know that I have more in tanks, and I always looking for this perfect shape, perfect form, and how to reach it. Obviously, you need to accommodate the changes in the body. And it's another challenge, which also makes it interesting because it's kind of puzzle where you need to put together a lot of pieces to make a perfect picture. You know, when you need to change your training, develop your training routine so in such a way that it will be suitable for your current state of your body, for particularly helpful for your kind of technique and inclinations of your body system. So what works best for you? Because for some people, probably the I can probably will die from the regiment from other athletes. Meanwhile, for them, it also will be counterproductive if they will do something what I'm doing. Also, technique. It's another huge topic in the race walk because it's you never can excel in this. You always would need to change something, alter something, because first of all, the ideal technique is very specific for your body. Some people can provide you, especially at the beginning, very helpful advices. However, the better your technique, the more specific it should be to your body and to development of certain muscles, ligaments, your stretching capabilities and all that stuff. And also, it's also constantly shifting target because your body changes as well, especially when you're getting older. And you need to work on it constantly because it's degrades. For me, sometimes I'm terrified just seeing myself on video, and I wanted to change a lot of things because when I'm looking at somebody else, a lot of things are obvious for me. But when you're trying to feel what are you doing by yourself, you can't feel it. You can feel something, but you actually need to look from outside, see some recordings, videos.
No, I think you've hit on a big difference, I think, between running and race walking. I mean, I've got a partner who's been a runner for a long time, and when I talk to other people, it's running. When I go for a run, I don't do a lot of thinking. It's often where I lose my thoughts. In a race walking, I can kind of do the same thing, but I find because you're always working on your technique and you're always aware of it, there is definitely more of a focus on that. You're thinking about that as well as sort of relaxing at times. Um, and I know for most race walkers, it is, especially masters, is always about trying to achieve that smooth technique, that technique that allows you to get that, find that next gear and improve. Um, and I think many listening to this, of course, are going to be listening to an athlete who has achieved a decent amount of technique because you've got the records and the times and everything else. Any advice to someone out there who's listening and going, wow, this guy's done really well for himself and accomplished race walker? What are some tips you'd give for, say, especially the masters athletes in terms of, you say, look at your technique. So is that one of the key things you would pass along, is there's something you can feel during a race walk or a training session, but you really need to have someone look at your technique or look at your own technique, say via video?
Yeah. Yes. First of all, if you're a beginner in a race walk, it's essentially to have somebody to give you feedback on uh, your recordings, or ideally, probably if somebody can provide you feedback in person, it will be ideal. But recordings nowadays are working as well because you definitely can't catch a lot of details when you're trying to develop a race walk technique by yourself from the scratch. Then, what else? For the training itself, the kind of meat of this, it's the same as for long distance running at glance, obviously. So the first approximation, you should train the same way how you train for the corresponding running distance. The same tempos, long, short intervals, long distance training, definitely there are different types of drills. What you would do comparing to running. So you can find in YouTube several videos which actually depicting those drills. I posted myself also this video about the drills. It will help because you need to develop certain muscles, neuromuscular patterns to be an efficient race walker. And I also wanted to point out that when you develop a proper technique, the limitation factor, how fast you are going during the any race, will be not a technique, or it won't kind of limit you. The limitation factor will be the same what you're experiencing during running. Your kind of endurance, your heart, your lungs, your muscles. That's it. Because race walk technique allows you to go as fast as you want. Obviously, we're not talking about the sprints. In this case, it will be limitation factor. But for me, probably anything longer than 1K, it will be not technique itself.
That's an interesting point, because I think a lot of us struggle with trying to find, I think, that efficient technique. So I think early on you really feel like it's the technique holding you back from going perhaps as fast as you'd like to. But like what you're saying is once you've got that down, it's more about fitness that's going to limit you in terms of the technique. Yeah, and that makes
That's
sense.
true. That's true. And just to demonstrate this thing, just imagine I'm not having a lot of running experience during my training. I'm kind of regularly running once a week, probably 6, 8 kilometers in very relaxed pace. However, at any moment I can go to the running race and run fast because I developed a lot of kind of endurance and developed the corresponding body systems during the race walk. It won't be a case if I will be limited in a race walk by a technique. I really need to work hard here.
No, that's cool. Do you notice the impact a bit more? That's one thing I have noticed as a runner going to race walking and then doing more race walking now that I'm doing running. What I do notice is, was I wasn't sure I would notice, is that when I do go for a run, it is definitely a little more poundy on the legs. If I were to say a long,
Yes,
yeah,
it's the because there are a little bit different muscles working in running. It's obviously uh, that's true. To reach your maximum potential in running, when you're switching from race walk, you need to spend some time, probably 2, 3 months, just to add this tonus to the corresponding muscles.
yeah, there's
But
definitely
other than
it's
that,
that three or four times your body weight as opposed to a lot less for race walking. Yeah, and it's funny how I knew the math, but then when I went out and did a few runs after not having run for a bit, I'm like, whoa, I'm fit, but the legs definitely need to get used to running again. So it's quite interesting. So, so I won't hold you back. I know you're back on the Canadian side for a little bit. You're with us for a little bit for you back to work in the States and live there for a bit. We want you can't stay there, Dmitry, though. We got to have you back. So I won't keep you long, but last question. You've accomplished so much. What are your short-term goals coming up for 2024? And have you got any big crazy goals? Like, what do I want to do with my race walking? Or are you just kind of you're gonna go like me, probably just keep chasing until you can't chase anymore?
okay. So the short-term plans, obviously for 2024, it's Gothenburg and the World Masters Championships there. It will be fun. As usually, 3 distances, and I hope to catch some medals here. Long-term plans is I'm not having like plans. I will be walking until my 80s or 90s because it's pretty simple for me. I will be walking until I die, whenever it happens. Hopefully, with the race walk, it will happen kind of pretty late. Um, yeah, and big party ideas and goals, probably as usual, I believe for all masters athletes from a certain kind of level, finally break a world record in my age group.
I think it's the one thing you're missing, isn't
And
it?
yeah, I never did it, and it's pretty hard, but I'm kind of getting there. I thought that probably this year, at the beginning of the year, I had been closer to the form to the shape where I will be able to break one of the records, but unfortunately I got injured several times, and then so it didn't end well, and so world record probably at some moment, but we'll see.
I like it. I like someone who dreams big. I'm kind of the same way. And for anybody that doesn't know, Canadian group here knows probably, but I am one age group below Dmitry. So he is basically making it very hard for me to reach any records. Every year I watch him set the bar higher and higher. So but I love
But
watching him
look,
race walk.
there had been guys who had been going before me who
Yeah.
also had been breaking records, and actually we're motivating kind of the next generations to do better and better.
Yeah, exactly. We're
And
pushing each other
and
just like we're
yeah,
training.
that's true.
I like it. All right, my friend, thank you for coming on and chatting. It's been a pleasure, and I wish you good luck with training. And if all goes well, perhaps I'll see you in World Championships next year. So
Would be great.
that would be fun.
Finally,
Excellent.
absolutely.
Enjoy your evening and all the best. And please come back to Canada sometime soon. We'd love to have you again on this side of the border and much closer to train and race with.
Yes, for sure. I'm planning to visit very often.
Sounds good. Take care. That's it, folks. The end of the podcast. No walkers have been harmed in the recording of this podcast. And of course, at the moment, we have no sponsors or supporters at this point to fund all this amazing podcasting. But if you're out there and have a race walk company that produces some sort of race walk apparel product or something you think race walkers would love, get hold of us. We'd love to have you on board. Give us a holler.